Daredevil is the greatest superhero TV series of all time. Prove me wrong. If you start watching along with us, you'll see why. It's a violent and surprisingly spiritual series. Daredevil is the first widely known Catholic superhero, so we're going to analyze the spiritual themes in every episode leading up to a new series, Daredevil Born Again. So start watching along with us or refresh yourself on the story here. I'm Nathan, the theology guy, and my pals Doug and Drew will be joining this experience with us. And this is Drew's first time watching a Daredevil series, so you're going to see his first time watching reactions right here. And speaking of Drew, he's going to give us a quick synopsis of Season 1, Episode 1.
The first episode of Season 1 is titled Into the Ring. We're introduced to Matt Murdock, a lawyer by day and a vigilante by night. The episode explores Matt's backstory, including the accident that blinded him as a child, but enhanced his other senses to superhuman levels. Now an adult, he runs a small law firm with his best friend Foggy Nelson, taking on their first client, Karen Page, who's accused of murder. Meanwhile, Matt begins patrolling the streets of Hell's Kitchen at night as Daredevil, confronting the criminals threatening his city. The episode sets a dark, gritty tone for the series, blending intense action with emotional depth and hints at the larger forces Matt will soon face.
But what about the spiritual themes? In a conversation with a priest, Matt Murdock shares memories of his father, who was a boxer, but he lost more fights than he won. His defining trait was being able to take a beating. He let opponents hit them until they broke their hand. If he lost on his feet. Matt tries to fight just like his dad, except not in a boxing ring. The spiritual theme here that's set up will span multiple episodes, and it may be inspired by another familiar superhero series. I'm going to invite Doug and Drew in here to respond to this question. Guys, did you think this was familiar at all? I felt like they were using another superhero movie as a template for how they put the show together, but especially this theme of falling down and picking yourself back up again.
Possibly Batman Begins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up again.
Yeah.
So did you see similarities in the production too between Batman Begins and Daredevil?
I mean, it had a darker tone, Daredevil, than most Marvel movies. So yeah, you can, they're kind of the offset of each other. Neither of them have, I guess Murdock did pick up some super hearing and things like that, but it's not like they fly or have laser beams shooting out or anything like that. They both just basically fight and use gadgets. So I think Batman did come out first. So this was kind of Marvel's Batman in a way. Came out in the 50s, I believe. 50s or 60s, and just to make it different from Batman, they made him blind.
Yeah, and these are real guys who get hurt. They're not invincible. They're dealing with trauma. I think it's safe to say that Batman had some trauma from losing his parents. Daredevil went through almost the exact same thing, and he even mentioned something about a therapy and learning to cope with the loss of his sight. So I think they're kind of showing you someone who's dealing with trauma, they're broken, and they're picking themselves back up. They've got this faith that they can continue, but you do see some real inner turmoil here in this opening scene. What do you think the spiritual theme is here in this conversation with the priest?
Well, my first impression on that was, he's asking forgiveness for what I'm about to do. And the priest is like, it's not how this works. And he's like, well, I'm about to go out and do some stuff that I know I should not be doing. I'm going to go ahead and ask for it in advance. And to me, this is just more about, this is revenge. I'm not letting people take advantage of weak anymore. Like I'm done with that. So if I've got to be proactive on it, I'll be proactive. I'm not going to sit around and wait for something bad to happen. I'm just going to go take care of it. So apologies in advance.
I don't know if it's revenge as much as it is just vengeance
or vengeance. Yeah, that's a better word.
Because I watched this years ago, so I don't remember where it goes, but I don't know if he ever gets justice for his dad. If he tracked down or not. We'll get to that maybe or maybe not. So it isn't like he's seeking revenge from the people who killed his father. He's just mad that this stuff isn't being taken care of. And so he's just like, okay, well, I'll deal with it myself, just the same way Batman being a vigilante the way he is, kind of going the same thing. It's just
At
Matt
this point in
Murdock
the
is not rich.
series, at this point in the series, like, we don't know what motivates him yet or anything. So that'll be interesting to find out.
Mm.
But this conversation foreshadows something dark that Matt is battling. If his dad got hit wrong in the ring, he would snap and the devil in the Murdock boys would come out. Matt is implying that he has a devil inside of him too, so we're left wondering who is going to hit Daredevil wrong, and will he snap? How bad will it get? This is the setup for what's to come in the next couple episodes. One of Matt's big character arcs is he's always wrestling with whether or not what he's doing as Daredevil is actually against his foundational beliefs. He's wrestling with that constantly throughout the series. So, I mean, you kind of saw his take on fighting crime and bringing justice in this episode when he beats up some thugs early on. I mean, he asked forgiveness for what he's about to do. Do you think what he's doing is actually wrong? Like, should he be suffering with this guilt that he has?
I think he struggles with it because he is a lawyer. He's got this almost dual identity. During the day, he's a lawyer, and from what I've seen and remember, he's a good lawyer. They're not out there just trying to make money, just get whoever they can. They're obviously good people. They meet Karen and then help her out with her situation by being her lawyer. And she said she didn't have any money, and they said that they'd do it for free. And then they hire her on, so that he's got a good heart. But at the same point, I think he struggles with the fact that so much bad is out there, and he can't do it all from just being a lawyer. And so at night, it's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde situation. At night, he's like, I'll do whatever I have to make sure people are safe, and I'll take the pain. And then, he goes to work during the day, guilty of what he did last night. So he does good during the day to try to make up for that.
I don't know that I got so much that he feels guilty about doing what he's doing. I think he somewhat enjoys it. From my perspective, like when he's out at Daredevil and he's beating the snot out of people, like he's got some inner demons that he's just absolutely unleashing on these bad guys. And I think he takes a little bit of enjoyment out of it because he will actually torture them to get the information that he wants. Like, what do I got to do to get you to talk? Well, I'm going to stab you in the eye. Yeah, okay. And he has like no remorse over it. He's not even hesitating. So from my perspective, I think he gets off on that. I think he gets a little enjoyment out of inflicting pain on others.
Yeah, we've jumped into episode 2 a little
bit there, but
it is that same arc that's brought into that. Like, I feel like he feels bad for that stuff during the day. I don't necessarily know that. You could argue, okay, being a vigilante is against the law, right? I don't know that he should necessarily feel spiritually guilty about trying to go out and protect the innocent. I think it's that he feels guilty about letting the devil out, He feels guilty about wailing on a guy when he's already down. So maybe this is very, very comparable to the beginning of the Batman, the movie, which I believe was probably inspired by this show. Because if you watch Daredevil just wail and punches on that human trafficker that he's like basically already knocked out, compare that to the opening scene of the Batman where we first see Batman fighting some guys in a subway. He's doing the exact same thing. It's shot almost the same way. Like, I think that those series, they all kind of play off each other. They play with this theme of how far is too far, and what is a good motivation for a hero? Like, what does a good hero look like? And, what kind of heroes do we need today versus the 80s action hero just like mowing people down in the past,
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from when you say you think he enjoys it. I don't know, there's a part of me where it's like, I wish I could do something like that. But I don't want to beat anybody up. Preferably, I'd rather jump down when somebody's getting robbed and grab the person and throw them against the wall and tie them up and then call the police and do it that way. But, they pull out a gun, I've got to break the wrist and walk away. Or no, not walk away, but I got to take, I got to do that. If he swings, I got to block, and then I got to take him down, and then as it goes on, especially if you're getting hit and hurt constantly. I mean, how many times I remember playing football in high school. We weren't that good. And so that's why I played. But, you'd be in practice and, you're sitting there and you're practicing, you're bumping, you're getting tackled. But there's one time you get tackled and you go down wrong and it's like, that hurt. And you get a little bit angry.
Mm-hmm.
So the next time you're up, you're starting to hit and then you hit that guy a little bit hard and then, now he's angry. And then all of a sudden it's like a full on game. And, it happens all the time. Teammates just get mad and start throwing fists, which is stupid because we're all wearing helmets. It's just going to hurt your hand. But anyway, that's the thing is when people get physical, you get hurt, you come back. I mean, I love watching my niece play soccer and, the first few minutes or half of the game, she's a little, tentative, a little bit nervous, but as soon as she gets bumped, you just see her face turn and then she just becomes an animal out there and pushing people and kicking. And, it's one of those things that some people, I think everybody has, but, some people can control it a little bit better than others. And when you get in a situation like that, and then you remember, it was evil people like this who killed my father, then that anger does come out. So I see where you're coming from. Like I say, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I kind of see it from this side.
Yeah, I get that.
But you're
Daredevil's spiritual conflict is kind of interesting to me because it's hard to say if it's really bad to go beat up human traffickers who have guns. I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, Jesus would have used more methods like love your neighbor, but there is also kind of a reality to this world, like where there's war and things like that. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Is there a time where using your fists is maybe okay with God? I don't know. It's a really tricky question.
I mean, isn't there a Bible verse where it says there's a time for this and a time for that and a time for this and a time for that? I can't quote it exactly. I don't know. I mean, that is a really tricky one because, I mean, you're doing this to some really evil people and you're protecting people who can't protect themselves, right? So in a way, you are kind of like taking care of thy neighbor. You're supposed to help the people who can't help themselves. This is you heal the sick, you feed the hungry, you clothe the poor. So in a way, it's what he's doing. And if these people who are up to evil are getting hurt in the process, so be it, right? I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I definitely know Jesus chose nonviolent means and he taught creative ways of stopping injustice in the world. But yeah, when somebody's pointing a machine gun at you, I don't know what you're supposed to do. I think
definitely don't turn the cheek.
If Matt learns to control his inner demons, and use his fists in more of a defense, maybe he wouldn't feel so guilty about what he's doing. But we'll see as the story goes on.
I don't know, because during the fights, I mean, he throws some really heavy punches and throws them around. And then 10 seconds later, they're back up and they're coming again. So, I mean, you got to get it to the point where these guys are down and stay down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if it's that. I mean, it's,
you got to make sure that your threat is no longer a threat, right? So you do what you got to do until that is no longer a threat.
Yeah. And in a way, he is laying down his life for these people that are getting sold in a shipping container. So yeah, what do you do? I don't really have a firm answer here. I don't necessarily have a problem with what he's doing, although when the guy's knocked out and he's wailing on him, I'm not sure how that would line up with his beliefs. But for the most part, it's a sticky thing, man.
Yeah. I saw something today where there was a pastor talking about people who share their beliefs, but they might actually have hate in their heart instead. So he says, don't tell me what you believe. Show me how you treat others, and I'll tell you what you believe. So maybe that's kind of where it goes into, what are his thought process? How is he treating others? He's looking out for people who need to be looked out for. So maybe that right there is where his true belief is.
Well, of course, I want to see this kind of crazy fights at the beginning of the series, but I'm also watching Daredevil for some character growth because we don't know, like we said, we don't know his motivations yet. I do want to see if there's compassion there, and I think there is when he meets Karen, but I do eventually want to see his motivation for fighting crime become compassion, because if you look at him, he's not happy. Like something is poisoning him. And it may be the darkness that he has to see all the time, but he is not thriving as Matt Murdock, maybe only as Daredevil at the beginning of the series. Another theme in episode 1 is innocence. Karen Page has been framed for murder by her employer, and everybody believes she's guilty. She's so afraid of her employer attempting to kill her that she won't even share proof of her own innocence. The only person that knows she's innocent is Matt Murdock, and only because he can hear her heartbeat when she's telling the story to know she's not lying. Daredevil is depicted as the defender of innocence. He finds her in her apartment being assaulted, and Karen's name is cleared when he finds a flash drive with evidence that can clear her name. But Daredevil's actions have caused escalation, and at the beginning of episode 2, we find that evil has retaliated.
In episode 2, The Cut Man, Matt Murdock is found badly injured in a dumpster and is rescued by Claire Temple, a nurse who reluctantly helps him recover. As they hide from danger, Matt reveals more about what he does and why he pushes himself to his limits. Flashbacks show his relationship with his father, Jack Murdock, a boxer who teaches Matt the valuable lessons about resilience. The episode culminates with a gripping hallway fight where Matt, still injured, battles through a group of criminals to rescue a kidnapped boy. The episode showcases Matt's relentless nature and hints at the blurred lines between justice and vengeance.
There's a story in the New Testament that this episode might be inspired by. It's called the Good Samaritan, but most people don't realize that this story has a twist. It's thought to be a story about helping people in need, but if you dig into the history, the Samaritan saved the life of his mortal enemy, a Jewish man who was dying. There was a lot of fighting between the Samaritans and the Jews. Similarly, Claire saves Daredevil's life when any reasonable person would stay away, thinking this man looked dangerous. So I'm wondering, guys, were you wondering at the beginning of this episode, why is she saving him? And why did she save Daredevil?
I figured she's a nurse, and they kind of have this code that you help people when you can. It's kind of her job.
The Hippocratic Oath?
Yeah.
But at the same point, and she does reveal it later in the episode, that she's heard about this man in a black mask that's been saving people and helping people and hurting bad guys and putting them in jail and all that fun stuff. So I think she just assumed, well, guy in a black mask. I mean, there were a couple times she tried to call 911 and he would stop her. So even though it was wrong for her to not take him to a hospital, she understood that she needed to help this person without bringing in officials like doctors who would have to call the police.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get the impression that she might have some demons too?
I didn't get that so much from her, because she seemed pretty reluctant to want to be involved with anything that could, one, damage her career, put her in jeopardy. She looked like she was kind of more of a pacifist. You know, I'm going to help you, but I don't want any part of what you're doing.
And you can kind of see that, again, we're jumping further into the episode, but when he's got that assassin tied up, he's about ready to torture, and she jumps in and says, do this to his eye. Well, that probably doesn't cause a lot of damage, just a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. So I think she was trying to stop him from seriously injuring the person and pointing him towards a way to hurt the person without permanently injuring him.
Yeah.
So
I
kind of
dropped a line somewhere that said something like, well, you don't know about my past or something. I wish I could remember
she
the
did
line.
Say that.
Yeah, I got the impression, there's something there that maybe, I don't know what that is, but it seems like it was a part of motivating her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did think it was funny because my wife, she was an EMT and worked in the emergency room. And when Claire went to aerate his lung, she was like, oh, that's a terrible spot to do that. Like, it's too high.
I love the beginning of this episode because it all comes down to trust. And that goes with everybody. So first they're focusing on Matt and Claire. You know, the two strangers. One guy is sit there stabbed, bleeding all over her couch, and then she's just this random person that pulled him out of a dumpster. So the whole episode is them trying, they have to trust each other, but at the same point, you can kind of see them still I'm not 100%, I'm about 70%, where at the same time, you go to Foggy and Karen, she's scared to go back home. So she's got to trust Foggy to protect her and kind of be there with her so she doesn't feel alone. This is a guy she's known for a week, maybe, and now they're best friends going out drinking all night. Again, she had to trust that Foggy was going to be there for her. And, they talk a little bit about that when they're at the bar. She's just like, look around, all these people scare me. And he's just like, let's get some trust here. That guy I know that guy. I know that guy. I know that guy. He is a criminal, but, I know that guy. You're safe here. Yeah. So, it's all about trust and vulnerability between the two couples. They're all new together and they have to learn to trust each other, which was kind of cool throughout the episode.
Yeah. And I would have thought that, maybe I'm just reading into it, this Good Samaritan story, but later in the film, there's this boxer that Matt's dad is supposed to face. Price. His name's Price. And I guess he's a real piece of work. He's a jerk or something. And Matt's like, oh, that guy's terrible or whatever. And Matt's dad says anybody who steps into that ring deserves respect. So that whole like love your enemy theme comes back, and it made me wonder, maybe they did do this intentionally, because by season 3, I mean, they're going to demonstrate that the writers of the show really know theology.
Yeah, and between the first 2 episodes, that was another great story, is the backstory of Matt and his dad. You see why Matt is the way he is. His dad was a very, very decent person. Mm-hmm. Yes, he took some money every once in a while to take a fall, but it was all for his son. And then when he realized that he was doing that, his son didn't like it, and he wasn't the hero that his son saw. So finally, he's just like, again, that comes back to another theme we see him all the time, is sacrifice. He's like, okay, teach my son a lesson that you always try hard, you always get up, you never fall down, you fight to the last bell. He went out, put all his money on him to win by knockout. He knocked the guy out knowing that he probably wasn't going to make it home that night, and made sure that his son had the money and everything. So
isn't that interesting too, that he taught, like, even if you lose, you stay on your feet, but this time to set his son up and teach him this lesson, set him up for life, he finally has to fall.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess in a way he did have to fall that time, didn't he?
Yeah, he knows
everyone falls once.
Yeah,
he puts that robe on, and I'm like, yeah, he knows he's gonna die. Mm-hmm. I also thought it was interesting that there's basically 2 ways that his dad could help his son when he's presented with this choice, to when he gets the biggest fight of his life, to throw the fight or win, right? And if he throws the fight, he's going to get a big payday and he'll be able to help his son. But if he wins the fight, he can be the man he wants his son to see him as and inspire him. And then he can have his friend, place a bunch of money on him. So it's interesting that either way, he can help his son. It's just, which man do you want to be? If you want to be the man that you want your son to see you as, you have to die to do it. It's a really interesting and deep predicament.
Yeah.
Well, also dying, knowing that he was going to die at the same point, he was able to set up his son. And now his son wouldn't have to live like they've been living for all these years. He's got some money now. He can actually get a decent place, somebody to help him with his Braille reading, being blind and things like that. They can afford the proper teachers to help him grow.
In the final showdown of episode 2, Matt follows in his dad's footsteps, fighting to save a missing boy, not knowing if he's going to make it back or not. This incredible 3-minute fight scene is something you have to see. A single take with no edits. Unbelievable stunts and camera movement that will blow your mind. So guys, what did you think when you were watching this? Because I remember the first time I was watching this fight scene realizing, whoa, we haven't seen any camera angles or camera changes in quite some time, and my jaw just dropped. What did you guys think?
It was a very cool scene, the way they set it up, because you see the bad guys go into a room, it pans out of the room, Daredevil comes around the corner, he goes in the room, bodies start flying out of the room, and it's about a 5-minute total sequence. However, I think Doug and I agree there's an edit in there somewhere, and I think we know where it's at.
At least one. I'm going to say there's probably a couple. I could be wrong. I'm not coming out and saying you guys are liars or anybody's a liar saying that this was one shot. However, after watching years and years of movies, some of these scenes where they get real close to them, you could technically throw a cut in there and just because, I mean, first off, if it is truly a one-shot thing, that was amazing, and bravo to everyone who was in that scene, except for maybe the kid. He didn't do much. But, you know, to be able to continue fighting throughout and doing everything, I mean, maybe they did some ad-libbing in there, and it was just like, you know, okay, when we get to this part of the fight, you get up first, you get up second, you two fight or you three fight at the same time, you know, and just do something. Possibly. But yeah, it's hard for me to believe that that went on for over 3 minutes of fighting without any cuts. Because if you talk to anybody who fights, 3 minutes, that's a long time when you're fighting and you're running and you're getting thrown against walls and getting, you know, jumping. You know, even when it's fake, you're talking that's a full 3 minutes for Charlie Cox to just do everything that he did. Now, maybe they switched him out a couple times when they went into a room and they brought out a stunt double. That could have been the case too. But yeah, it just feels like there were a couple times when the camera got really close that they could have put a cut in there.
It's like a quick little blur.
I'm not sure, because when they go down the hallway, the camera spins around, right? The camera goes past them, spins around. When they come out of that, the gimbal got bumped. You can see the camera just ever so slightly moving. And I wonder if they left that in there because, well, that's the take we got. We don't want to reshoot it. I don't know.
It's possible.
It is possible. Like I said, I'm not saying 100%. I'm just saying what I felt while watching it.
But regardless, it was an amazing scene anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite fight scenes ever. I've watched that multiple times. So, yeah, it is pretty cool. But
yeah, amazing episode, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Very intense when Daredevil's injured almost the entire episode.
Yeah.
Well, just to show his perseverance, you know, he was injured. He's been stabbed. He's been, you know, barely see out of an eye because it's all bruised up and everything like that. And still is like, I got to save the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do whatever I have to save the kid. And he did.
Yeah. And those are my favorite types of superheroes. The ones who have a little bit of weakness, the ones who are a little bit more human, you know, who can feel pain, get beat up. It's why Indiana Jones is one of my favorite characters of all time. The guy's constantly getting his butt kicked. Rocky gets beat up pretty bad. I love that character. You know, even Batman takes his knocks, you know. So yeah, I don't like the invincible superheroes. I love it when they actually show some relatability that it's going to hurt when I fall off of this building.
The tenacity to get back up and do it again. Yeah. Well, we're going to be following along for season 1, so stick around for episode 3 soon. Watch along with us, and we'll see you next time.